What's happening, people? Welcome back. Here's your opposition preview for Burnley versus Tottenham this weekend as we return to Premier League action. I'm joined by Joe from the TurfCast podcast, a Burnley fan channel. Joe, thank you very much for your time and how you doing firstly, but also please do tell people a bit about you, what you do, and with the channel.
Yeah, really good. Thanks, Harry. Thank you for asking me on the channel. Does what it says on the tin. Probably pretty similar to what you're used to when it comes to football channels. I'll just talk about Burnley, pre-game shows, post-game shows, fan reactions, interviews with legends. There's a Burnley legend from the days when we're in the sort of like lower leagues. Glenn Little, he comes on every couple of weeks as well. I've got an interview lined up with in fact, I won't mention it yet because it's not been announced. But another Burnley legend with the nickname Stretch. So if there's any Burnley fans watching it, they'll know who that is. Coming up soon. So yeah, just the usual stuff when it comes to football channels, mate.
Oh, great stuff. And I'm honestly really grateful for your time. So thank you very much. If you're listening on YouTube and you're new, please subscribe. If you're listening via audio podcast platform, drop us a follow and a 5-star review. Thank you very much for coming for this opposition preview. Should be a good one. So, Joe, can I start with Burnley's season so far? What have you made of it? Because I look at you as an outsider and think, that maybe you don't get as much credit as you deserve. I think most games are competitive. And of course, you're not in the situation you'd want to be. But I don't think you roll over, like, for example, the 3 teams that went down last year did. That's just how I feel. But you know a lot more than me watching Burnley every week. So give us your thoughts so far.
Yeah, it's one of them. I'm not sure we deserve much credit, if I'm honest with you. We haven't won since late October, and that was against Wolves when they were in dire straits. Obviously, they seem to have turned somewhat of a corner recently. But yeah, like, we are in games, we are competitive, but we're in games in the sense that we're not getting spanked 3-4-0 like we did in the Vincent Company season. Like in the Vincent Company season, we used to get battered every single week. And sometimes games were genuinely over by about the 20-minute mark because we'd already be 3-0 down. So, we're in games more in that sense, but we're just not offering enough within the games. Like, they look competitive outside looking in because you're looking at it thinking, oh, Burnley drew 1-1 with Man United, or with Liverpool, sorry. Oh, Burnley drew with Man United 2-2. So the last couple of results have been better. And you'll see, like, oh, they only lost at home 1-0 to Palace, or oh, they only lost 1-0 here, they only lost 1-0 there. But in all these games, we just sit back. It's bizarre. Like, I don't really know what the plan is half the time. We just sit back. I call it sitting back and waiting for the inevitable, because we're going to get beat. Because we just sit back, we try and soak up the pressure. We're not good enough defensively. Then we go 1-0 down. Then we might play a little bit, but it's too late. We don't create enough, and then we lose the match. So it has been a tough watch this season, if I'm honest with you. It's been a slow start to the season. Like I said, we have had a couple of better results recently and have looked a little bit better going forward since Marcus Edwards has come into the side, which we've been crying out for months. Why Scott Parker hasn't done it earlier, I do not know. So fingers crossed we can start kicking on now, but we're like, 8 points adrift? So it's probably a little bit too little too late at this stage.
Yeah, definitely a big, gap to climb for sure, but not out of it until it's over. I mean, it sounds like that you do need help, of course, in the window. A lot of clubs will look to January window to save their
Yeah.
season in different ways. I'd argue my club Tottenham really need it. I think Burnley absolutely need it in the situation they're in. So for you, what is required in the rest of the window to give Scott Parker the best chance of survival?
Oh, it's a difficult one. I feel like we need a creative wide player. Like I said, Marcus Edwards has come in the side, maybe some help for him. Jadon Anthony can be okay, but he's been quite poor recently. I'd say recently. He played really well against Liverpool, to be honest with you. But despite a great start to the season, Jadon Anthony has been quite poor over the last sort of like 3-4 months. Our captain, Josh Cullen, obviously one of our best central midfielders, he recently suffered like a really bad injury. I've seen pictures of him sort of like with this massive protective sort of like brace and boots on and things like that. Like, he's out for the rest of the season. He's done a cruise ship. So he's completely gone. And we were a little bit light in that area anyway, so definitely a central midfielder. We've got Humphreys coming back in now, so a lot of people do say centre-back. I'm not so sure. I think Humphreys coming in could cover the centre-back position. And I feel like every club says this. I know it's very difficult to find somebody like this who scores goals in the Premier League, but just a proper number 9. That would really, really help us if we had a proper number 9. Yes, we can struggle creating chances and stuff like that. But I feel like a proper number 9 would really help us. Somebody who can put the ball in the back of the net, when they get the chances. Because all them years ago under Sean Dyche, we were kind of similar, not too similar in terms of style of play, but kind of similar in the sense that we'd sit back a lot, try and soak up a lot of pressure, create very few chances. But the difference were when we had Chris Wood, he was so clinical. When he were in his purple patches, you give him 3 chances and he scored 2 of them, for example. Whereas now you give Lau Foster 10 chances and he scores 1 of them. So we need somebody a bit more clinical. So yeah, we are pretty short in a lot of areas, but there's been very, very, very few links, if I'm honest with you. I'm not sure how you guys as Windows going, but it's literally every time I open Twitter, it's like Leeds are linked to this guy, Sunderland are linked to this guy, Everton are linked to this guy. I'm just like, what about us? Can we have a link? We've had James Ward-Prowse. West Ham don't even want him. Don't get me wrong, I think he would be a good addition to Burnley. But is he past it? He's not played much this season. Is he going to be able to slot into the team and hit the ground running? Yes, he's got good set pieces, but yeah, it's a difficult one. So we need a few areas, but there's not much happening, it seems.
Same with Spurs, we've got Conor Gallagher in really happy, but then boom, nothing, not linked to anybody. And the only player we have been linked to is like you go West Ham. I think it's Matt Hermansen, their second goalkeeper. I'm thinking, really, this is the type of player that's gonna, take us from 14th to 8th. For example, I don't think so at all. But and look back at your summer window, right? And at the time, it felt like you've done some good business. You brought in that Premier League experience. Carl Walker, the most notable, but also Dubravka. I thought, do you know what? That's a sensible signing. Of course, losing Trafford was unfortunate, but I thought Dubravka, okay, you're gonna, fill kind of that hole. You would think just a little bit. So looking back now, did you do? I mean, it's easy to say in hindsight, but you think you've done enough? Because of course you are 8 points adrift. Could there have been more done in the summer to support the manager and the team?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, it's very easy for me to sit here in hindsight. And if any Burnley fans sort of like do drift over to your channel and see this, then I'm like, you hypocrite. Because in the summer, I was like, wow, what a window. We've done really well. But obviously, we're 8 points adrift. Look at Leeds and Sunderland. I don't think Leeds' squad is that much better than ours. I think I'm prepared to admit now it is better than ours. But they've got a striker that, and all right, Calvert-Lewin has struggled in recent seasons, but they've got a striker who puts himself about, who wins headers, hold balls up, and he's been scoring goals. That's something we're missing. And yeah, look at how much Sunderland strengthened. Yes, they had to spend a lot, but we spent quite a bit as well. Unfortunately for us, a lot of it was loans with obligations from last season that we had to buy, that we brought in for the Championship. So like Zian Flemings, who's done okay to be fair, but he has had a bit of an injury. Your Jadon Anthony's, players like that who are good Championship players, but are probably not quite good enough for the Premier League. Having said that, we did bring in, obviously, Kyle Walker. He started the season very well, but he's been really, really off it recently. I'm not sure if the games are catching up with him because he's a little bit older. Martin Dubravka's been a brilliant purchase as well. He's had a couple of games where he's looked a little bit iffy. West Ham away was the main one, but he's been a brilliant signing and like I said, brings in a lot of experience. I'm trying to think who else I brought in now. Florentino Luis, he's actually a really, really, really good footballer, but it doesn't really suit the Scott Parker system. He's a really good ball winner, and he's one of them players that you want him. You need to have like a creative sort of midfielder next to him, because he will win the ball, get it to the creative midfielder who can then spray the passes. He cannot pass. He's so poor at passing, and sometimes he gets caught on the ball as well. So he'll be caught dallying, looking for a pass to give it, and he's just on it too long. Leslie Ugochukwu from Chelsea, again, another player who's actually started life at Burnley quite well. But again, I just feel like the stuff that we've mentioned earlier, we've needed a proper striker for about 3 seasons now. I don't know why we haven't been able to bring one in. Yes, I understand the difficult, especially at Premier League level, but relying on the likes of Lyle Foster for too long now, and it's pretty obvious we are lacking from a proper striker, like I said. And more creativity in the wide areas again. So, yeah, like I said, it's easy to sit here in hindsight now and be like, well, we're 8 points adrift, so we obviously didn't do enough, especially when you look at the likes of Sunderland. However, in the summer, I did feel like they'd done a decent job, if I'm honest with you.
That's how it felt, if I'm honest with you, as an outsider. So it's interesting that you feel similar on that, and appreciate your honesty there, Joe. Thank you. And on Spurs, then, what have you made of my club Tottenham so far this season? Because there's a lot of pressure on Thomas Frank. He seems to be booed every week.
Yeah.
Last time out we beat Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League, and it's very much like it was all like, oh, he's going to take the media duties, he's going to take the training session, is he going to take the game? It feels like we're going by game basis if he's still in the job or not. And because he's beat Dortmund, he's expected. Well, he's definitely going to take media duties. The club have confirmed he's taking training and media duties, which you assume means he's taking the game. So a lot of uncertainty there. But what have you made of our season overall and him as a whole?
Interestingly, just to go on the point there that you mentioned about Thomas Frank, I would find it very. If you were going to sack him, you had to sack him after the West Ham defeat. I feel like you've given him the Dortmund game, you've won the game comfortably. I actually watched that one as well. You looked pretty good. You won the game comfortably. It'd be very strange to then sack him after that. If you wanted to sack him after West Ham. If you lose at the Turf on Saturday, then feel free to sack him then by any means. But I feel like it'd be strange to sack him now at this moment. Outside looking in, I don't know. I just feel like I find it bizarre that you're in the top 8 in the Champions League, or were before last night's round of games. I don't know if you still are, but you're knocking on the door of automatic qualification from the Champions League. You know, some good results in there, but yet you're losing against, Brentford, West Ham, Bournemouth. It just looks very inconsistent to me. And I'm not particularly sure if Thomas Frank is the issue at Tottenham. I feel like the higher up you go, the more issues you have. However, I do feel like Thomas Frank is probably showing that the job might be a little bit too big for him, if I'm honest with you. As an outsider looking in, feel free to tell me I'm wrong if you disagree. But I feel like he's gone from a club the size of Brentford, who, let's have it right, they're smaller than Burnley. There's not many clubs in the Premier League smaller than Burnley, but Brentford and Bournemouth are definitely two of them. You could argue there's some more as well. So he's gone from a job where he's done very well, admittedly, don't get me wrong. If you sacked him and we sacked Scott Parker, I'd love Thomas Frank at Burnley. I think he's a good manager for a club of our sort of level of what we want to achieve. But is he finding that he's not the type of manager for a club the size of Tottenham? I don't think maybe he's a top 6 manager, or maybe he should have done an intermediate club in between then, like an Everton, a Sunderland, a Leeds, something like that, in terms of stature. So, yeah, I look at Tottenham and I just see a very inconsistent side who struggles to pick up consistent results, but clearly has the quality in there, because you've shown on occasion that the quality is there. And I feel like if the quality isn't consistent enough, then that is a manager issue. But again, Tottenham has bigger issues than the manager. You go higher up, the more issues you have. But I do feel like Thomas Frank is an issue at the same time.
Find it hard to disagree with that. And 5th in the Champions League table and 14th in the Premier League. So just to give people an idea of the difference.
So bizarre.
I know, absolutely crazy. And it was 4th in the Champions League, but Liverpool winning against Marseille pushed us down. And we're going to get realistically going to get at least playoffs now. That's guaranteed, and likely top 8 with Frankfurt to come. I think a draw would be enough, but of course, ideally a win. So either way, we could be going through automatically. But at the same time, we're looking behind us. We're looking at where Leeds are, Bournemouth are in the Premier League, really, rather than ahead. So that is a concern.
Yeah.
But again, Joe, thank you very much. And before we get on to the game as a whole, I've got interesting question for you here that I thought of, and that is, what one player would you take from Tottenham at Burnley? If I said to you have to choose one, but you can't choose any more than one, so not less or more, who would it be and why?
Just because of what we need, I'd be choosing like a Solanke or a Richarlison, somebody like that. Probably Richarlison. I know I'm not sure if he's done that well this season. I can't remember, forgive me. But he always seems to score against us. So just take him off you to stop him scoring this weekend would be nice. There's something about Richarlison. Even in his Everton days, he was scoring against us too often. I don't know if he has a mad vendetta against Burnley or what, but I think he scored on the opening day of the season as well. I think he might have scored twice, if I remember rightly. So, yeah, for what we need, probably just to sort of, I know these aren't your best players, but just to fit into our sort of like squad, into our holes, I'd probably go Richarlison or Solanke. If I had to be choosing one, I'd lean more towards Richarlison, just because he always scores against us.
Okay, you'd be glad to know that he's injured for this weekend. Is one.
I'll take that. Get in there.
There you go. That's a good thing. And also, we've got Lucas Bergwijn, who's out for another 2-3 months. So Tottenham for this game. Well, put it this way: in the last one against Dortmund, we had 12 fit senior players. It was 9 3 days before, so we managed to pull together an 11. And for this, it's a little bit more because the likes of Gallagher and Dragusin are eligible. But I think we're looking at 14 senior players at the moment. Yeah. So maybe later on in the game, if you play it right, and don't get it wrong, you haven't got the quality necessarily off the bench, you'll know that. But maybe you could play into your hands a tiny bit as the game goes on if you play it right. It's difficult. I have to see.
Yeah, we've got quite a few injuries, but a lot of them are long term rather than shorter term, like more of a sort of like shock to the system where you suddenly have 3-4 players out. Obviously, Amdouni has been injured since the start of the season. Josh Cullen's been out now for a while. Like I said, he's got a cruciate. So, obviously, the press conferences, I presume for Tottenham will be today. I know for Burnley it will be today. So I guess we'll find out more later in the day about injuries and stuff. But yeah, seems to be that stage of the season where a lot of clubs seem to have a lot of injuries, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Certainly mounting up across the Premier League as well and beyond. Do you have a favourite memory of Burnley and Tottenham? I mean, I can think of a couple. I assume that you'll choose a positive memory, but go for any.
Well, it's bizarre. Are there any positive memories on our side? I remember beating you on the last day of the season, 4-2. But we were already down then. This is in like 2010, so you probably won't remember that. And you know what, even though we lost the match, and again, I don't know if you'll remember it, but your audience might remember it, is the Carling Cup semi-final in 2009. I went down to White Hart Lane, and I remember I was at White Hart Lane. We went 1-0 up. This is the Carling Cup semi-final, by the way, right? So it's obviously 2 legs. Burnley hadn't been a Premier League club at any point in their history at this stage. Obviously, we've won the old division. We've been champions of England twice. Used to actually battle it out with Spurs in the 60s. Again, even I don't remember that. But obviously, since it's changed, since football has been reinvented by Sky Sports, we'd never been in the Premier League, and we got you guys in the semi-final. I think the one semi-final was us against you, and another semi-final was Manchester United against, I think it might have been Derby County. But anyway, we went 1-0 up at White Hart Lane just before half-time, and I'm thinking, wow, what a journey this has been. We're beating Chelsea on the way. We're beating Arsenal on the way. We beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge on penalties. Then we beat Arsenal in the quarter-final. Then we got you. Went 1-0 up at half-time. I remember sitting there with my dad. I was only 21. I'm nearly 38 now. And I remember sitting there with my dad going, we're going to do it. We're going to go to Wembley. I might actually see Burnley win something. And then you just absolutely murdered us in that second half. Beat us 4-1. But the second leg is not the best memory, but a memory that will always stick with me forever. Obviously, we needed to win by 3 goals, but what it were, they changed the rule that year that away goals didn't count. So the year before, we'd have won because we actually went to the turf and beat you 3-0. And we were 3-0 up. The full-time whistle went, and I knew that we weren't through at this point, but a lot of people around me thought we were through. And I'm like, no, they've changed the rules. It's extra time. We're going to extra time. And it gets to like 5 minutes left. And I'm thinking, please get to penalties and hopefully do it. And Roman Pavlyuchenko scores to make it 3-1. And genuinely, I've never seen a set of supporters go as mental as I did with the Spurs fans that day. But I was only 21. I was still young. I just remember me sat there, still slumped in my seat. And I literally started like getting upset and like crying and stuff and things like that. And then Jermaine Defoe scored to make it 3-2. And it was weird. Like afterwards, the turf was just rocking. Everyone was like gutted. But like, they're like, what have we just witnessed? We've witnessed an amazing cut run. I remember my dad saying, like, Joseph, get up and hit me. And I just stood up and everyone's like, because I was still down and despondent. And everyone's up and clapping and chanting and stuff like that. So that were good. My favourite memory is going even further back. 2004, 2005. I remember we beat you 2-0. I think it was in the League Cup, so like 4th round. Might have been 2-1 because I think it was Gus Poyet scored for you. And then Robbie Blake scored an equaliser, who's been on TurfCast, by the way, if you want to listen to that interview. And Stephen Davis scored a header. So yeah, I'm probably missing an obvious one, but I do remember beating you in a couple of times when we were a championship, or like Division 2 sort of side back in those days.
Joe, thank you. And I like the memory that you shared there, that you can take a positive out of what was a negative result in the end, but you can recognise the performance like the first half.
It's bizarre as well. Every time I see Roman Pavlyuchenko, I still to this day say to myself, and to anyone around me, brought me out that lad, because he did. He properly brought me out that day.
Yeah. Apologies Eddie, about that. But no, thank you very much for sharing that. There's one that I can think of, and it won't seem long ago, I'm sure, for anyone listening, as well as yourself. But it was recently. I swear, I think it was under Pochettino. I'm going to say we lost to you at Turf Moor, at Turf Moor, I should say. And I just remember Pochettino going up to the referee. I think it might be Mike Dean and having a confrontation with him. And I just remember that really well because we were in a really good position going into the game.
I think that
we
lost
ago. 1 or 2 0. No.
Yeah, I think Ben Mee scored a header, actually, now you mention it. I think I did a vlog
that's it.
The vlogs on the channel at that point as well. And I think
I actually 2017, 2018, maybe. Something, it was around then. Yeah, I remember that. Anyway, all I know is we played all 4 years. We were in a great place going into the game, and it kind of ruined any hope that we had of competing at the very top. But on to the game itself this weekend. Joe, how do you feel about this one? You will know, you've said it there, you desperately need a win. Is this the type of game you could be, really saying, look, okay, a draw isn't good enough, we need to win?
Ultimately, yeah, like I've said it on the channel recently, we've had good results at Liverpool, good results against Manchester United. But ultimately, they're not enough in the situation that we're in. We need to go at you on Saturday. Genuinely, like I said, I don't want us to just sit back. If we just sit back against you and just like, right, we'll sit back and just wait to get beat, then what's the point? You are in a position now where you are out of sorts domestically. You can be got at. West Ham have proven that. And West Ham, aren't much better than the team's better than ours. I'll fully admit that. But in terms of points and where they've been this season, they're at a similar position to us. That's why they're in the relegation zone, right? So we need to take sort of like inspiration from these sort of sides, take the game to you, put you on the back foot, and that's what I want us to do. I feel like you are there to be got at. I feel like we can beat you, but it's one of them. It depends which Spurs turns up. The same Spurs turns up that played against West Ham, Bournemouth, Brentford, we have a chance of beating you. To say, I remember watching you when you were 2-0 up. I even texted the TurfCast WhatsApp group saying like, there's no chance we're beating these if they play like this on Saturday. So if you play like that on Saturday, I worry for us. But if you play like you have done domestically on Saturday, then I actually think we can get a win. I ultimately do think it will be 1-1, which isn't enough for either side. And I'll end up leaving the turf a little bit annoyed, like thinking, yeah, yes, where were these performances and results earlier in the season against the bigger clubs? Like now you're getting 1-1s away at Anfield and you're disappointed because it's not enough. And like 1-1s at home to Spurs and you're leaving thinking that's not enough. We really need to win on Saturday. Whether we do or not, again, it depends which Spurs turns up for me. And it depends how we sort of like take the game to you as well.
And that's the thing, and it might be the same for West Ham at Nuno that they come alive, but is it too late? What can you do at this stage in the season? Of course, points wise, they're in a slightly better position than you guys are, but you could look at it two ways, couldn't you? You could look at it and go, look, we've improved so far to the fact we're not happy with draws against Liverpool or Tottenham if we get it, but also you can look at it and go, we've left it so late that a draw like that isn't a good result. So
Exactly,
maybe a bit of both.
Yeah, it's one of them. Like you can look at the result individually and be like, that's a good result against a good side. But when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, it's not enough.
100%. That's what I thought. At one point it was 1-1 between West Ham and Tottenham. Of course, they won it in the end, but I was thinking that wouldn't be a good result for West Ham because they were in a winning position, and B, just a draw does nothing really for them at the moment. But before we end, then some end of season predictions. Where do you think that your club, Burnley, honestly will finish in the Premier League? If to give an honest prediction.
Yeah, I think where we are now, 19th. I know Wolves have had a bit of a resurgence, but I don't think they'll have enough. Still 7 points behind us. I think it is maybe 6 now. So I still think we'll finish above Wolves. I'll be surprised if we catch West Ham. I'll be surprised, even more surprised if we end up finishing 17th. Obviously, the January transfer window can change things, but again, if you're going to ask me who we were going to sign in the January transfer window, I wouldn't be predicting any big signings of anything like that. So I think now it is just a case of accept you down and sort of like look towards next season now, which is a shame because the last couple of seasons we've done so well in the Championship. Over the last 2 seasons, we've lost just 5 games in like 90 odd matches in the Championship. So it is a shame, especially we did so well last season in the Vincent Company season. You feel like you're starting again, you're resetting every 2 years, and that's not really what you want to do. You want to kick on like Leeds and Sunderland have. So yeah, I'd be very, very surprised if we get out of the bottom 3 at this stage.
Okay, again, appreciate your honesty with that. Always difficult to admit, but appreciate you saying how you feel and just being totally honest about it. And lastly, before we do end, where do you think that my club Tottenham will finish in the Premier League?
I think you'll slowly start to kick on. It's bizarre, but I said that last season, and you just ended up finishing what were it 17th. Like you never looked in any danger of going down, but in last season you just ended up. It depends because I feel like now it could be another scenario like last season where you get through to the Champions League and like, well, we might as well focus on that then now because we're not going to go down. But I'll be very, very surprised if you do break into the top 8. I feel like you've been too inconsistent. If you start being consistent, you are more than capable of finishing that top 8. I just don't think you've got that consistency in you. I feel like you'll have flashes in the pan, you'll get your hopes up, and then you'll lose against Forest or whatever, or you'll lose against Leeds. One of them sort of like ridiculous results that you seem to throw in there every now and then. So I'll probably say 11th, something like that, 10th, 11th, something like that, which obviously wouldn't be enough for a European place this season. And unfortunately, you don't have the Europa League to rely on to get that European place. Whether you win the Champions League or not, that remains to be seen. But I think that'd be very, very, very surprised if you won the Champions League, despite how good you've been in it. So I'd probably say something like 10th.
Appreciate that. Again, that's fair. And if I was going to be really negative, which I don't like to do as fans, a lot of people look at it and go, Spurs are 10 points, from safety in a comfortable position. But with the games, because we've got a tough run coming up, we've had it fairly easy till now. That's the thing. You're right. We haven't got these results. They're not easy, but easier games. But you
Yeah,
guys will be tough, of course, away. But once that gets out of the way, of course, we just had Dortmund in the Champions League. But it's like Newcastle, Chelsea, United, City, Arsenal. It's all kind of Bank Frankfurt in there as well. In about 6 weeks, it's about 7 games. It's all back to back before it is an easier route to the end. But I'm thinking, hang on a minute. If we get 3 or 4 defeats in a row, where do we honestly sit in the league? It could be quite a
exactly. Yeah,
nasty situation. And that's what worries me about Thomas Frank. Like if we don't get a result against you guys, that what chance are you going to get? When we come up against Arsenal, for example, that's the way that some people look at it. But knowing Spurs, we'll do better, in the bigger game.
yeah.
and make,
Knowing Spurs,
just
you'll lose
difficult.
again. You'll lose against us on Saturday, then beat Arsenal. That sounds like that. I know the term is Spursy, but that is literally the most Spursy thing that you could do.
It is.
And the entire footballing world will look at it and go, "Yeah, fair enough. We expected that."
Exactly, and like the league and Champions League comparison is a great example of
Yeah,
Spursy, and the fact that we've only since April we've won 2 games at home in the Premier League, and then we go
that's
and boom,
mad.
beat Dortmund, who hardly lose a
Yeah,
game at home as well. And we just
yeah,
in Europe at home, we've got a record for 7 years that we're unbeaten there, but at home we can't win at all in the
yeah.
league.
It's
So
bizarre.
just honestly, so strange. But Joe, honestly, thank you so much for your time. Where can
Yeah,
people
no
follow
worries.
you personally, and also the channel on the socials?
Yeah, so if you're watching on YouTube now, obviously you'll see on screen my handle for the TurfCast channel is TurfCast Podcast, all one word, at TurfCast Podcast. I have recently just set up my own YouTube channel. I've not put any videos on it yet. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's one of them. You start a YouTube channel because you think, I've got an audience. I might be able to start a personal YouTube channel, because I do feel like I'm restricted in how much I can grow TurfCast because of the size of Burnley. Like I see other creators who support bigger clubs who, in my opinion, aren't as good as me, who just engagement farm and clickbait, and I just think I can't really do that because Burnley's too small of a club, and they have bigger sort of like followings just because of the size of their club. I'm obviously not going to name any names, but you see creators that have bigger subscription bases and stuff, and they're not that good. They just support bigger clubs. So I thought I'll create my own, do my own thing, but I don't really know what I want to do with it. I might talk about football every now and then. I might do a bit of football tourism, because I've got an 8-year-old son who I've been talking to him recently about, doing more away games and stuff like that. Maybe even doing some stuff to like games abroad. Like I want to go to the San Siro. I want to do stuff like that. I want to see all these sort of like stadiums across Europe. So I might vlog stuff like that. So yeah, feel free to follow me on either of them, and just search TurfCast Podcast on any search engine, and you'll find us on Facebook, TikTok, even Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. We're everywhere.
Great stuff. Make sure you follow the TurfCast podcast on all socials and support Joe there. But Joe, thank you very much for your time. I wish you, the channel, and Burnley all the best for the rest of the season. Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
And if you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're new, if you're listening by audio podcast platforms, are available on all the major podcast platforms. Drop us a follow and a 5-star review. But apologies, Joe. But till next time, up the Spurs.